Crisp dawn light spills across clear water lake as my grandfather's old cabin wakes with a gentle creak. I sip fresh coffee on the porch, smiling at loon chicks diving for the first time, certain nothing could spoil this perfect retirement morning. Unaware a pearl-white Escalade is already roaring up the gravel lane, and that its driver will kick this very door in right in front of the state attorney general. Golden light spills across clear water lake, brushing the mist into soft ribbons that drift past my grandfather's hand-hewn porch railings. I lean back in Pop's creaky wicker rocker, cradling a mug of black coffee that tastes like every fishing story he ever told me. Solar panels hum lazily overhead, pulling morning power from a cloudless sky, while two loon chicks practice their first clumsy dives near the dock. Pop always said this cabin keeps a man's soul steady, and for a moment I swear I can feel him nodding approval at the quiet perfection he left me. 30 years of crawling through muddy trenches to wire half the county finally paid off. I'm retired, debt-free, and the lakefront land Pop bought for $800 in 1963 is worth more than a downtown McMansion. I stretch, savoring the pine-sweet air, and think the biggest decision I'll face today is whether to grill bass or catfish for dinner. That's when the piece cracks, sharp staccato clicks of high heels on weathered wood. I glance down the dock and see a pearl-white Escalade idling like a restless predator. Out steps a woman in a $1,000 blazer, perfume cutting through the cedar like ammonia. She's maybe late 50s, hair sprayed into battle array, HOA badge pinned to her lapel like a sheriff's star. She stops at the end of my dock, surveys the scene as if she's inspecting a crime scene, then marches straight toward my porch with a fat envelope in her manicured hand. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. The stranger doesn't bother with hello. She tapes the envelope to my screen door, the adhesive ripping against wire mesh, and announces, Delilah Cromwell, president of the Lakeside Estates Homeowners Association. Your dock is an unsightly structure that's damaging community property values. You've been fined $500, compliance required within 72 hours. Her voice is ice, her smile non-existent. I manage a polite nod and explain calmly that my grandfather's dock predates any HOA by 4 decades. Her reply? A condescending laugh. Everyone on this lake answers to me, sweetie. Ask the Hendersons how fighting me worked out. I feel Pop's rocker go still beneath me. The loons fall silent, the mist seems to tighten around the shoreline, and my perfect retirement morning tilts off its axis. As Cromwell pivots back toward her Escalade, she fires rapid-shot photos of my solar panels, vegetable garden, even Pop's carved porch railings. Every click sounds like a gavel. Then she's gone, dust kicking up behind her SUV, leaving the envelope flapping against my door like a warning flag. I tear it open. Violation Citation 1, payment to something called the Community Improvement Fund, account number 847,291. The fine print says daily penalties will accrue. I stare at the dock Pop and I repaired when I was 12, the planks bleached silver by 100 summers, and I hear his voice in my head. When someone wants your land real bad, son, find out why, because it's worth more than they're telling you. The next morning, a second envelope waited, this one fluorescent orange so every neighbor could spot it from the road. 2 violations added, solar panels, exceeding allowable glare index, and vegetable garden outside approved landscape palette. Another $1,000 in fines, same Community Improvement Fund account. By day 3, the count was 5 citations and climbing. Delilah's Escalade returned like clockwork at dawn, heels ticking out a metronome of menace. She never spoke, just circled with her phone raised, recording every shingle and nail as if cataloging evidence for a crime I hadn't committed. At first, the neighbors waved sheepishly, unsure what to make of the drama. By week's end, they looked away, clutching their own mail as though eye contact might earn them a citation. Old Mr. Peterson crossed the street to avoid conversation. The Martinez kids stopped biking past my driveway. On Facebook, a post from Lakeside Estate Watchdog warned of certain homeowners endangering property values. The comments piled up, concerned emojis, whispers about unsafe structures, talk of necessary action. Same phrasing, same punctuation, like they'd been copied and pasted from a script Delilah handed out at her Wednesday wine socials. I tried reasoning with her once, caught her photographing the dock at sunset, light catching her phone's jeweled case. "Ma'am, my property line extends 50 feet into the lake," I said, showing her the faded 1963 survey pop framed in the hallway. She didn't glance at it. "That document is obsolete," she chirped, "and so is that dock." Then she slid oversized sunglasses over eyes that never blinked and suggested I modernize by selling to an interested buyer already lined up. I asked her who. "Someone who appreciates community standards," she answered, stepping back into her Escalade as its LED headlights cut the dusk like interrogation lamps. Night brought new tactics. Headlights swept across my windows at odd hours, pausing long enough to silhouette me in the living room. My mailbox was nudged sideways, just enough to make the postman leave a note about improper installation. Little things, relentless as dripping water. When the Hendersons' cabin went dark one evening, a for sale sign appeared before sunrise, price well below market. Delilah posted a selfie beside it. Another property on its way to upscale perfection. I heard Pop's wisdom again, carried on the crickets and lapping water. When a bully shows up, don't just brace, investigate. So at dawn I drove to the county courthouse, that limestone relic smelling of floor wax and 90 years of secrets. Miss Betty, the records clerk, remembered Pop teaching her boys to fish. She walked me to a dust-caked cabinet, slid out the original deed like a relic from a cathedral, and laid it beneath humming fluorescent light. There it was in black ink. Henley parcel includes submerged land extending 50 feet westward into Clearwater Lake. No HOA, no amendments, no asterisks. Betty's finger tapped the notarized date, May 12, 1963, then the HOA charter filed in 1998. "Looks like they're overstepping, honey," she whispered. I left with certified copies under my arm and something stronger than coffee in my veins, cold resolve. Delilah had fired the first shots. Now I knew exactly where to aim back. I rolled back up the gravel lane just before noon, county seal envelope riding shotgun like a badge. Sun caught the fresh orange citation flapping on my screen door, but I walked right past it, straight to the dock. The lake was calm, but my heartbeat wasn't. I filmed a quick sweep of the shoreline, zoomed on my property stakes, then the deed pages held tight in my calloused hand. Insurance, I told myself, digital timestamp, irrefutable proof. The Escalade was waiting when I turned to leave for groceries, parked sideways across my driveway like a blockade. Engine running, AC whirring, Delilah behind the wheel tapping her manicured nails on the glass. I rapped on the window. She lowered it 2 inches, perfume gusting out. "Oh, Marcus, I'm conducting a spot check on community parking compliance. Might take a while." She smiled, raised the window, and went back to scrolling her phone. I could have yelled. Instead, I walked the half-mile to Walt's General Store, bought a 12-pack, and hiked it home, sweat and anger mixing in the July heat. She was still there. I set the beer on her hood with a thunk hard enough to make her jump. "Got something for you," I said, sliding the certified deed copies under her wiper blade. "Read the highlighted lines, my dock sits on my water." Her lips thinned, eyes flicked over the paper, then she cranked the engine and peeled out, paper whipping into the air like confetti. That night a certified letter hit my inbox, Blackstone, Mayor and Associates on the header. Legal jargon 3 pages long, cease and desist, retroactive violation fees, threat to lien my property in 10 days. $3,000 due to the same community improvement fund. I recognized the strategy from union safety fights. Bury a guy in paperwork until he'd rather pay than battle. Pop's voice nudged me. "Truth sits in the open, you just have to shine the light." I scanned the letterhead's fine print. Legal services billed through Clearwater Property Solutions, LLC. Quick search on the State Business Registry. LLC formed 69 days ago. Registered Agent 1, Robert Cromwell, Delilah's husband. The sky cracked with late afternoon thunder as I pulled printouts of every citation, fee schedule, and assessment notice I'd received, each funneling money to that same improvement fund. Then I opened the county's public HOA filings online. Emergency dock repair fund, $280,000 collected. Landscaping contract, $150,000 to Cromwell grounds and maintenance. Storm damage insurance claims, $95,000. On days the weather service had logged clear skies. The numbers glowed on my laptop like neon arrows pointing one direction. Fraud. Just after midnight, motion lights flared. I eased outside, flashlight off, camera rolling. Delilah's silhouette moved near the solar inverter box, screwdriver glinting. She tugged at wiring, muttered, "Let's see how off-grid you really are." A twig snapped under my boot. She bolted, tires spitting gravel into darkness. I replayed the footage under kitchen light, her face full frame, tools in hand. Proof of sabotage, escalation from paper threats to criminal action. I poured 2 fingers of Pop's old bourbon, stared at the growing stack of evidence, and felt the shift. This wasn't a neighborhood squabble anymore. It was organized theft, intimidation, maybe bigger than our lake. And I suddenly knew I wouldn't just defend my dock, I'd burn her entire scheme to the waterline. Sun crawled over the ridge the next morning to find 3 county trucks idling beside my mailbox. Building Inspector Dale Morrison stepped out first, hard hat under one arm, clipboard in the other, eyes apologetic. "Morning, Marcus. Got a complaint about unpermitted structures." Behind him, Fire Marshal Bob Rodriguez and Environmental Officer Janet Bennett compared addresses like they'd arrived for a block party. 3 agencies, same timestamp on the work orders. Delilah had fired every bureaucratic bullet at once. I opened doors, flicked on lights, and let them comb through the cabin. Dale measured joists Pop had cut straighter than laser beams. Bob checked breaker boxes Jake and I installed last year. Janet tested water samples so clean you could bottle them. After 3 hours, they huddled on the porch. Dale shook his head. "Everything's textbook, Marcus. Whoever filed this doesn't know code or doesn't care." Rodriguez added, "Gonna file my report as inspection passed. Sorry you're getting hassled." They drove off, leaving tire tracks and an official paper trail that proved Delilah's allegations were smoke. By lunch, Channel 7 ran a community spotlight segment. Delilah in front of my dock, wind machine in full effect, lamenting dangerous living conditions threatening our children. The camera angle made my cabin look like a horror movie shack. My phone erupted, neighbors, former coworkers, even my sister in Oregon asking if I'd joined some doomsday cult. I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded the sabotage footage to my old friend Chuck Davis, now a lawyer with a taste for bulldog litigation. Chuck showed up that evening lugging a case of beer and a portable scanner. "State Attorney General's office is already sniffing around shady HOAs," he said, feeding documents into his machine. "Your evidence is gold." He called his contact in the AG's white-collar division, then turned to me. "Start a written log, time, date, every incident. Keep originals safe, copies for me." Pop's oak table became an impromptu war room covered in color-coded folders. Word spread faster than July algae bloom. Jake Martinez rallied 20 union electricians. They descended on my property Saturday, clipboards in hand, running diagnostic tests and live-streaming confirmations that my solar array was pristine. Viewers climbed into the thousands, comment feed shredding Delilah's hazard narrative in real time. Each union's signature went into my growing evidence stack. Delilah struck back that night. Headlights swept the tree line, someone spray-painted "comply or leave" across my mailbox, and a brick wrapped in HOA letterhead shattered my porch lamp. The hidden camera caught her license plate as she sped off at 2:30 a.m. I sent the footage to Deputy Chad Cromwell, her nephew, who shrugged on arrival. "Probably teenagers." His smirk said he already knew who did it. Sleep came in 2-hour shifts. Every ping of my phone might be another citation, every crunch of gravel a fresh trespass. Yet something unexpected stirred, solidarity. Mrs. Patterson called from Florida, voice trembling but resolute. "If you fight, I'll testify." Tom and Susan Martinez slipped an apple pie and a note onto my steps. "We're with you." Even old Judge Carter dropped off a thermos of coffee and advice. "Document, document, document." By week's end, my criminal evidence binder was 4 inches thick. Fraudulent invoices, forged signatures, shell company registrations, all roads leading to Cromwell accounts. I stared at that mountain of proof and realized Delilah had miscalculated. She thought she was isolating me. Instead, she'd built the exact coalition needed to bring her empire down, one notarized page at a time. Thunder rumbled in the distance as the clock crept toward 9. Inside, Agent Torres monitored camera feeds on a tablet while Sarah Mitchell arranged color-coded evidence binders across Pop's oak table. The front door was propped open just enough to let in lake air, and to give Delilah the illusion of easy entry. A convoy of unmarked SUVs rolled up the lane and parked beneath the pines. Out stepped Attorney General Patricia Williamson, composed in a navy blazer, thermos of coffee in one hand and briefcase in the other. She shook my calloused palm like we were longtime colleagues, then settled into Pop's recliner with a calm that made my pulse slow for the first time in weeks. We dove straight into numbers. $280,000 in phantom dock repairs, $150,000 to a landscaping shell company, $95,000 in bogus storm damage claims. Every dollar traced back to Cromwell accounts. Outside, loons called across the water, oblivious to the legal storm gathering on shore. Agent Torres adjusted her earpiece, murmured, "Perimeter teams in place." The room felt simultaneously small and epic, like history sharpening its pencil. A distant engine roared, growing louder. Gravel sprayed, slamming against siding like hail. Delilah's pearl-white Escalade skidded to a stop, vanity plates Rule 1 shining beneath flashbulb pops from her hired citizen journalists. She marched toward the porch, phone raised, live stream timer ticking. "We're moments away from exposing state corruption," she announced to 3,000 viewers. A shaky camera followed her $1,000 heels as she kicked aside the half-open door and bulldozed into the room. "What is the state attorney general doing colluding with my harasser?" she shrieked, panning her phone across faces she didn't recognize as undercover officers. Attorney General Williamson stood, badge displayed, voice steady as bedrock. "Mrs. Cromwell, you are trespassing on private property and interrupting an official investigation." Delilah's eyes widened, faltered, only a flicker, then she thrust the phone closer. "You see, intimidation, political persecution." Her live comments scrolled in a frantic blur. "OMG, what's happening? Wait, that is the AG girl, you in trouble." Agent Torres stepped forward, federal credentials raised. "Delilah Cromwell, you are under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, vandalism, and witness intimidation." 2 deputies moved in, cuffs clicked around manicured wrists. Delilah's phone slipped, clattered onto Pop's braided rug, camera still rolling upward from the floor. Viewers now stared at a ceiling fan whirring above justice in motion. Her voice cracked into disbelief. "Robert will fix this. You people don't know who you're dealing with." Outside, microphones bristled as local media captured the perp walk. Officers guided her down the porch steps she'd once condemned, past solar panels she'd sabotaged, toward the Escalade now being photographed as evidence. The lake breeze carried her perfume, sharp, synthetic, then whisked it away like the final scene of a play. Attorney General Williamson exhaled, turned, and shook my hand again. "Mr. Henley, your persistence just dismantled a criminal enterprise." Inside, Agent Torres labeled the final evidence drive. Cromwell live stream, full confession. She tucked it into an FBI evidence bag, sealing the red tape with a satisfying snap. I glanced at Pop's portrait over the mantel. For the first time since Delilah's heels first clicked on my dock, the cabin felt like home again, steady, unbroken, and mine. 3 months later, I sat on a smooth wooden bench in federal court, the same oak tone Pop used for the cabin floors. Delilah entered shackled at the wrists and ankles, orange jumpsuit replacing her power blazer. She kept her chin high until the clerk read the charges: wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy, vandalism, witness intimidation. Each count struck like a hammer. Her shoulders fell an inch at a time. Judge Michael Harrison, square-jaw, no-nonsense voice, summarized the evidence. Forged invoices, fake storm claims, shell companies, the livestream confession. He paused and looked straight at her. "Mrs. Cromwell, your scheme preyed on neighbors you claimed to protect. You weaponized an HOA to run an extortion racket. This court will not tolerate community terrorism. He delivered the sentence like a carpenter drives a nail. 36 months in federal prison, 36 months supervised release, $340,000 restitution to homeowners, lifetime prohibition from any HOA leadership role nationwide. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Delilah blinked hard, lips trembling as marshals guided her away. In the hallway, Robert Cromwell avoided eye contact. 32 counts of conspiracy and misuse of office awaited him next. 2 weeks later, state officials convened in the town hall gym, bleachers packed, fluorescent lights humming, to dissolve Lakeside Estates HOA. The motion passed unanimously, its accounts were frozen, audits commenced, and the name retired like a disgraced mascot. In its place, we formed the Clearwater Lake Volunteer Association. No mandatory fees, no compliance squads, just neighbors agreeing to chip in with Saturday cleanups, summer potlucks, and winter wood stacking for seniors. Mrs. Patterson Skyped from Florida to cast her vote. The Hendersons drove up from their temporary condo just to clap and cry. Restitution checks arrived in manila envelopes stamped Department of Justice. I watched Tom Martinez, who'd thought he'd never recoup a dime, stare speechless at his $27,000 reimbursement. Old Mr. Peterson's hands shook as he endorsed a check that would pay off medical bills he'd ignored to cover bogus fines. The sweetest moment came when I signed the endorsement for my own compensation. Whistleblower award, $45,000. Knowing Pop would have told me to use it for something bigger than myself. We did. The first community meeting in my restored dock house voted to create Pop's Legacy Trade Scholarship. $500 grants for local kids entering electrical, plumbing, or HVAC apprenticeships. Jake Martinez pledged the union's ongoing mentorship. Retired Judge Carter promised yearly legal workshops on homeowners' rights. Even Dale, the building inspector, donated his overtime pay to buy starter toolkits. By autumn, the lakefront felt reborn. Solar workshops replaced smear campaigns, potlucks replaced citation hearings. Kids fished off the dock Karen once labeled unsightly, their laughter echoing through crisp air that no longer carried the stench of intimidation perfume. One chilly evening, a VFW buddy lit the new fire pit and raised a tin mug. To Marcus, the man who proved one stubborn neighbor can topple an empire. I shook my head, surveying the glow on familiar faces. To community, I answered, and to never letting bullies call themselves leaders again. Snow dusted the pines. The morning Governor Ellison signed the Henley Act, his pen scratching across parchment in the rotunda while cameras flashed. Annual independent audits for every HOA, felony penalties for harassment-based property manipulation, and a whistleblower fund drawn from recovered assets. It all traced back to a stack of citations taped to my screen door and one woman's addiction to power. Reporters asked how it felt to inspire state law. I just pictured Pop mending that dock in 1978, sweat on his brow, and said, "Sometimes the smallest nails hold up the biggest beams." Word spread far beyond Clearwater County. Families from Iowa to Georgia mailed handwritten thanks, some with photocopied citations eerily similar to mine. Agent Torres forwarded data showing 23 additional investigations launched off the evidence web we'd built. One bust in Missouri recovered $1.1 million. Another in Oregon exposed a city council bribery ring. Fraud rings that once operated in shadows now faced the glare of subpoenas and televised perp walks. At night, I'd sit on the porch, hear distant loons, and think justice sounds a lot like open water after a long winter freeze. Ice cracking, barriers breaking. Netflix showed up with drones, boom mics, and a title that made me laugh. HOA Hell, How One Lake Cabin Sparked a Revolution. They filmed Pop's rocker, the scar on the doorframe where Delilah's heel split the cedar, even the chalk lines where Agent Torres taped microphones. The producer warned me fame could feel invasive, but I told him strangers had already live-streamed my life. At least this time, the narrative belonged to the good guys. The licensing check built a guest cabin we named Second Chance Lodge. Families fighting their own HOA demons stay free, swap stories around the fire pit, and leave with digital toolkits Agent Torres helped design. Fraud spotting worksheets, sample discovery requests, chain of custody templates. One veteran called it a FOIA request in flannel form. Clearwater Lake's revival became the stuff of tourism brochures. Kids skate where my boat once floated loose, their parents sipping coffee from the new solar-powered lodge. The Hendersons reclaimed their original cabin after the court voided Delilah's fraudulent deed transfer. They promptly painted it bright sunflower yellow just to annoy any future tyrants. The Volunteer Association coordinates shoreline cleanups, handicap-accessible fishing docks, and the annual Pop Henley Derby. Winner gets a toolbox instead of a trophy because, as the sign says, skills beat medals. This morning I brewed coffee by lantern light, not because the power was out, but because I like the flicker. I stepped onto the porch, breathed that sharp winter air, and felt the world settle. No citations, no surveillance headlights, no perfume cutting the cedar. Just the hum of solar batteries and the faint buzz of my phone stacking messages from people I'll never meet who finally believe they can fight back. So, friend, if some clipboard tyrant is circling your garden or taping threats to your door, remember this lake. Document everything, rally your neighbors, and aim for the daylight. When you're ready, drop your story in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, what you're up against, and how you plan to win. The fire pit's warm, the coffee's on, and the community is waiting. Thanks for sticking with me from sunrise serenity to courtroom victory. If this story fired you up, smash that like button so more folks beat the algorithm and the bullies. Got your own HOA horror or triumph? Drop it in the comments. Every shared experience strengthens our growing league of lakefront Davids. Subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss next week's premiere. The city councilman who underestimated a veteran's food truck. Remember, documentation is armor, community is ammunition, and justice loves a well-lit stage. Until then, keep your docks sturdy, your cameras rolling, and your spirit stubborn. See you soon.